Hello, everyone. Um, Thanks for coming. We've been working on the Anchor platform for about 2 years now, and it's been a long journey, and we're really excited to kind of see this go from, piloting with different organizations to seeing this in production and really being embraced by enterprise businesses. So you're in the right spot if you're looking to learn more about on and off ramping and using enterprise grade software to do that. So for those of you who have been in the Stellar ecosystem for a while, you're probably familiar with this saying. This is our mission. This is the SDF's why, creating equitable access to the global financial system. And this is something that we think a lot about on a very tactical level. Stellar originally, and still is today, widely considered a payment network, right? Payments was our original use case. But with the coming Sorbonne announcement, right, and the coming Sorbonne launch, we're going to see a greater set of financial activity and financial use cases that are possible like fully on chain, and this is great. This means that there's going to be a permissionless network that's focused on access that is offering a greater set of financial services. But in order for that to really matter, there has to be a critical mass of adoption, right? Going from off-chain based applications to on-chain based applications. And that's going to take a while. I don't expect that to happen in the next year, probably not even the next handful of years. So I think something that we have to keep in mind, and something that the crypto ecosystem in general, I think, doesn't fully acknowledge or doesn't give it as much thought to as they need to, is that really any customer of a Web3 or blockchain-based solution is going to be on-ramping or off-ramping at the start or end of their given use case. So on and off ramps are like absolutely critical to enable like the actual adoption of these financial services that ultimately provide access to those who don't. And in order to help enable businesses to provide those services on chain and really facilitate the beginning and the end of every user's journey when they use one of these services, we need to make Stellar-based services as easily accessible for everyone and as easy to build for everyone. And so that's why we're very focused on our anchor network. We really want to make this a global anchor network where we have several competitive options for a given use case using a given payment rail in a given region. That's our vision. So that's why we built the Anchor platform. It's a set of services that make on and off ramping to an existing and compatible ecosystem as easy as possible. And I'm saying an existing and compatible ecosystem explicitly because you can build your own on and off ramp today. You don't need to use the Anchor platform. But what makes the Anchor platform effective and more powerful is that it's immediately going to make you compatible using Stellar's standard APIs with the existing ecosystem. And every time there's a new entrant into the ecosystem, you get to automatically be compatible. And it just really lowers the barrier to entry, amplifies those network effects, and it is really the thing that you want to do if you're trying to get off the ground with a new on and off ramp service. So what is the Anchor platform? Well, at a high level, there's two primary use cases. There's deposits and withdrawals on and off Stellar, but there's also cross-border payments through Stellar. And under the hood, there's several kind of smaller modules that are enabled through this technology that you could use independently of those use cases, but they're also leveraged kind of as a part of those flows. That's receiving payments, authenticating with your Stellar account, kind of as a single sign-on feature, right? No need to have a username and password for every decentralized application or Web3 service that is being offered, right? Transaction and quote history, if you don't have a backend API and you're just on and off ramp like with a web view, and server-side webhooks. This is all stuff that you have to build if you're building an Anchor service or an on and off ramp service. But the Anchor platform does this for you, right? And so that's the whole idea of the Anchor platform, is to do everything it can to make the business's life as easy as possible, reducing the barrier to entry and ultimately simplifying their development process and their speed to market. So from an architectural perspective, this is what the Anchor platform looks like in its most basic form. You got the client here on the left side, you have the Anchor platform in the middle, kind of acting as this middleware component, and you have a business server on the right side. Inside the Anchor platform, again, it's a set of services. So we have this like SEP server on the left side, which implements the standardized Stellar protocols that the existing ecosystem already implements, right? So all of our wallets, all of our remittance senders, they're already implementing these APIs, and that SEP server implements the APIs that they integrate with. But we, on the back end, have a platform server that offers a much more simplified interface explicitly for the business that removes a lot of the complexity and details about doing this and offering this business on Stellar. And so this is going to really help focus the business, make sure they're focusing on their given use case, making sure that they are doing what they do best, and letting the Anchor platform handle the Stellar specifics and ultimately like additional functionality, as we'll kind of get into detail here. One thing that's important to note is that by decoupling the client interfaces with the business interfaces, we're actually able to iterate faster and optimize the experiences for both parties more quickly and without impact to the other. Right, so if we need to, build a new interface or add an existing or a new feature for an existing client, we can do that. We can update the SEP protocol, update the SEP server with no changes to the business. They don't have to change their code, right? They just get this feature for free by pulling down a new version of the Anchor platform. And in the reverse case, if we onboard a new business, they're interested in using the platform, but need a little bit of a tweak, we can do that, and there's no change to the SEP server. All clients can remain unchanged as well. So this decoupling is really beneficial, and having the Anchor platform in the middle from an architectural perspective allows the Anchor platform to do as much as possible on behalf of the business and only going and communicating with the business when it has to. So some things that it also does in addition to acting as a middleware component is it also offers like server-side webhooks, both to the client and to the business. So this is an optional component. You can just pull the platform server or SEP server if you don't have this event service deployed to your architecture. But it's something that really comes in handy from a user experience perspective, and it also enables real-time updates. So this is something that we added as an optional component. In addition, we also offered a generic custody server. So if you're a business that is just getting into the blockchain space and you decide to use a given custodian, that's great. You can use the Anchor platform with that, and the custody server here at the bottom can integrate directly with your custodian. And if you ever switch custodians, there's really no changes to your architecture or your development process because that custody server can integrate with various custodians, and you just use the interface to the Anchor platform. Again, this is an optional component, though. If you already have an integration directly with your custodian, there's no need for you to use the custody server. So there's that flexibility there. Okay, so from a interface perspective, everybody is somewhat familiar with the Stellar ecosystem protocols and their APIs, but what you might not know is what the interface looks like for the business. So here on the right side is kind of the set of endpoints that the business has to integrate with or implement in order to communicate back and forth with the Anchor platform. There's two sets of APIs. There's a callback API, which is thought of as kind of a client-side API. It's when the Anchor platform needs information or is going to provide information to the business. So this is when the Anchor platform needs to get the rate for a given asset exchange from the business, when they need to check on the status of a customer or provide updated information on that customer, or when they need to send the Anchor or the business an event, all right, such as a transaction being created or a payment being received. In the flip side, there's another API called the platform API, and this is when the business needs to fetch or provide information to the Anchor platform. So you can obviously get transactions or quotes that have previously been generated, and you can also update transaction state using an RPC API. And I can dig into more that RPC API if we have some more time afterwards, but really it's just to transition the transaction state from one to another, indicating, for example, that the transaction is ready to receive funds on-chain because you received a deposit off-chain, right, or vice versa. Okay, so let's kind of get out of the kind of conceptual theoretical discussion and kind of go through an example. The first step in any transaction using the Anchor platform is going to involve the client authenticating. And in this example, the client is just going to interact directly with the SEP server, and that's all that's involved in this authentication process. From a business perspective, you don't need to worry about that. The Anchor platform handles authentication of the client and the user or the customer themselves through Stellar's standard authentication protocol. The next step may be that the client needs to request a quote for a given transaction, right? An exchange of assets, either US dollar fiat to some other stablecoin, or some other fiat for USDC maybe. In this case, the Anchor platform doesn't actually know the exchange rate that the business is going to offer, right? So in these cases, when it doesn't know the information, it reaches out to the business and leverages that callback API that I mentioned earlier to fetch the exchange rate from the business and pass it back to the client. But there's really only a subset of cases where this is necessary. In most cases, the Anchor platform can handle the request completely on its own. The next step is going to be the client actually initiating the transaction, referencing that quote that it created, right? And this is one of those examples where the Anchor platform doesn't actually need the business's input in this, right? It already has created the quote. It can create the transaction in its database and just notify the business via the event service that the transaction had been created. And so this is just a more streamlined experience. Again, you don't need to use the event service. The business could just pull the platform server and recognize that there's a new transaction in the API. Then this is kind of the most complicated part, is the business needs to approve or reject the transaction. And this depends on your KYC and AML practices. It depends on your transaction policies, all that kind of stuff. You can either approve, you can reject, but you can also ask for more information. So this is all going to be done by making a request to the platform server, updating transaction state, indicating to the Anchor platform and eventually to the client that you either need additional information or that you're ready to proceed with the transaction. And when you do this, it's going to fire an event to the client. The client could also pull the SEP server instead, but they could also receive those real-time events through the event service. Now, let's say you approve the transaction. At that point, the client's ready to deposit funds. So they send funds through Stellar. It goes to your custodian address. The custody server can detect that a payment was made to your custodial account and notify you through the event service. Again, if you have an integration with your custodian, then this looks a little different architecturally, but the flow is the same. And then finally, to complete that transaction, you're going to transfer those funds off-chain to the client's account, and again, notify that platform of the transaction status change. So that'll again fire an event back to the client. So this should just give you an example of when each component's used, why each component's there, and when really the business needs to be involved in a particular action involving a transaction. Because in many cases, it doesn't need to be, right? There's only a handful of things that the business needs to worry itself with, such as the off-chain transaction status updates, as well as the exchange rates that they're offering for transactions, and the Anchor platform can handle the rest. So I'm going to pass it off here, but the important thing I want to kind of communicate here is that the SDF is very committed to this technology, very committed to this service. We have our lead engineer, Jamie, over there that you can pepper with questions afterwards. But we're going to really be committed to making this as well documented as possible. We have API references, getting started guides, a suite of demo tools and testing tools that you can take a look at developers.stellar.org. And that is about it. You can pull it down from Docker and get started. The next thing I'm going to do is introduce Jimmy Koo from Flutterwave. He's head of growth, and he's going to talk about what Flutterwave is doing with the Anchor platform. Jimmy?
All right. Thanks, Jake. All right. As Jake mentioned, my name is Jimmy Koo. I am the head of growth for Flutterwave. Move that over. This is not the slide. Okay, well, I'll go with it. I'm going to improv. I'm fine with that. So one of the things that Jake said was the mission for Stellar, which is to provide financial inclusion. What do you guys think about that? Are the folks in this room interested in helping to achieve that mission? Cool, great, because so are we. So we at Flutterwave are very excited about this as well. That's why we are the anchor for Stellar in Africa. And what we like to say is that Africa is not one country, but we want to make it feel like one. So at the end of the day, there are a lot of different nuances across the continent. It's very difficult to navigate through all of that, but what we want to do is make it as simple as possible with one simple API. Work closely with Stellar and the Stellar team to be able to do so. So we're really excited about what we can do together. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Flutterwave for those who aren't familiar with us. We are Africa's largest payment infrastructure at the moment. Last year, we raised a $250 million round. We're the highest valued startup at the moment. We've done over 400 million transactions, totaling over 25 billion in total payment volume. We hope to be driving a lot of that through the Stellar ecosystem as well. We power over 1 million corporate global enterprises, so companies such as Meta, Twitter, Netflix, Uber, Microsoft, etc. And we work with all sorts of folks from SMBs, consumers, on up to the enterprises. We have now 700 global employees, so we do have folks in Africa, but we have folks all over as well. Myself, I'm based in San Francisco, so for those who visit, let me know. We're also close to the Stellar offices out there. Our mission is primarily to simplify payments for endless possibilities. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the endless possibilities that we're working on and some of the possibilities going forward as well. Now, one of the key things is we're focused primarily on Africa, and there's tremendous growth opportunities across Africa, and I'm head of growth for Flutterwave, so this is kind of what I'm keying in on. But there's a couple of things to just kind of highlight what's going on across the continent and why it's really interesting. And if you guys are interested in more, I'm happy to chat with you more about that. But the first thing is the population growth. It's the youngest, fastest growing population, and it's going to be the workforce of the future. I think at some point there's statistics about how it's going to be half the workforce around the world. So all those people are looking for opportunities as well. There's a fast-growing population. They're all getting to that stage where they're looking for opportunities and jobs and everything else. They're also moving into cities. It's urbanizing. They're getting more connected. They're on their mobile phones. They have smartphones. They're also getting wealthier, so they're spending on more services, products, and everything else. So the opportunity exists there as well. In terms of economic growth, 8 of the 10 fastest growing markets are there in Africa right now. So a lot of people are starting to look at what they can do, how they can do business. Now, you can't do business if you can't transact. If you can't collect money, if you can't send money, if you can't move money, you can't do any business. So that's really the core of what Flutterwave is doing. And the other big thing that's happening across Africa is remittances are tremendous. It's huge. 2 of the 10 largest remittance markets in the world is in Africa. It's Egypt and Nigeria. So in 2020, it was about $46 billion being spent. In 2022, it's about $48 billion. So it's growing. It's still 2 of the largest in the world. And that money transfer is a huge opportunity for everyone in this room, plus more. But not only is there a lot of money being moved, in sub-Saharan Africa, there's a lot as well. So, Egypt and Nigeria being the top 2, but across all of sub-Saharan Africa, we're talking about now over 51 billion overall. Nigeria, of course, trumps everything else. The next few, Ghana, Kenya, Senegal are important ones as well. And so there's several markets that are actually very, very important when it comes to remittances. And most importantly, remittances are incredibly important for the lifeline of the people living there. If you look at the GDP and how much the remittances contribute to GDP, South Sudan, for example, 34% of GDP is remittances. I mean, that's incredible, right? Now, across all of Africa, it's around 2 to 3%, but the money being sent from around the world into Africa is impacting over 200 million people. So there's a tremendous opportunity, a lot of money impacting a lot of people, and it's a big part of the GDP. Now, here's a big part of the problem. It's also the most expensive corridor in the world. On average, it's costing about 8.7%. So what does problem equal? We have a solution, which is not that. Working together between kind of Stellar and Flutterwave to provide access, to move money easier, to decrease costs, to make it much more efficient, to provide 24/7 capabilities. And that's really why we're working with the Anchor platform, what we're doing together. We're really excited about all the things that we're working on together to provide that. A lot of logos on that wall over there, several of them in this room as well. So we're working with a lot of folks. So what are we doing on the Anchor platform? On a high level, we have kind of the other anchor. It's not a merchant. We call it a merchant, but it's basically the on-ramping anchor. So there's a money transfer anchor that wants to move money into Africa. They are able to then get their customers to move money into USDC. We're transacting on Stellar. And what we've been able to do with the Anchor protocol is now, not only can you get the exchange rates and information for all of our supported currencies across Africa, when we do the exchange between USDC and USDC on Stellar, we take that information and then we are able to then make the exchange based on the exchange rate that was given and do the payouts across Africa to 32 countries in Africa into bank accounts, into mobile wallets, and allow for that money to be paid out across Africa. So that's what we're working on together. If anyone's excited to be on the SEP31 protocol and work with us on that, of course, we're excited to talk to you more about that. We are also going to be releasing SEP 24 capabilities as well for a lot of the fintechs that we've talked to about enabling that. That's in the works. We'll be ready for that as soon as possible. So at the end of the day, what we're really excited about is to change the way the world does business with Africa. So if anyone's interested in chatting more about that, let me know, and I'm ready to pass it along to Heinrich. Banksa.
Thank you, Jimmy. G'day, everyone. So my name's Heinrich. Don't know why my middle name's in there. I'm head of product at Banxa. So what is Banxa? We are a fiat on and off ramp. We offer our services globally, and we are listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange as well in Canada. And so we've been in business since about 2014. Started out in Australia and have since expanded globally. So we offer on and off ramps. We have NFT checkouts. We have an open ramp solution as well for connecting fulfillment through to smart contracts as well and private app chains. And also token listings. We support over 100 tokens on, I think, 80 blockchains. And that's continually expanding as well. So at Banksa, we're on a mission to enable economic innovation through crypto infrastructure. So what we do, basically we're a B2B2C business. So we have merchants that, such as those that integrate using our API, and then we allow their customers to on-ramp through us. They can do so basically via an embedded widget or a redirect to a new web page using our APIs, or if they don't have the ability to hit our APIs, they can just use like a redirect query URL. Yeah, we support wallets, centralized exchanges, DeFi platforms, DEXs. Yeah, we're basically everywhere, and we support a lot of currencies across the world and local payment methods as well. So credit card, Apple Pay, obviously, but then also local payment methods in different countries, ACH in the US, Interact in Canada, SEPA in the UK, local bank transfer in South Africa, PIX in Brazil, etc. So this is allowing customers to pay with those currencies, and then we issue the cryptocurrency that they want on the other side. We are the merchant of record for these payment transactions on the fiat side. So I guess, we take responsibility for all the regulation and the compliance, and also all the fraud and the chargeback risk when it comes to things like credit card transactions. And so really, we offload that from the merchant, and we take responsibility for all that. So all that the merchant has to do is basically integrate with us and then send their customers our way, and we take all that responsibility. Now, in terms of Stellar, so we've been working with the Stellar Foundation, Development Foundation, sorry, for integrating into the hosted deposits and withdrawal standard as introduced by Jake. I'd probably like to start just by saying that Jake and the team has been, without a doubt, the most professional team we've worked with in the industry. They've been really good, yeah, really good. Just responsive, professional, quick to assess any issues we had and get back to us. Just a pleasure to work with, so couldn't recommend them any more highly. So we've integrated into their standard, and I'll show a bit of demo. So yeah, I'll skip all the words, that's boring. USD and XLM, we support for on and off ramp through that. So my chart's a bit more agricultural than the other charts that we showed today, but that's basically what the integration path or the API call path looks like for a buy order. I won't go through it one by one. And that's the integration path for the API calls for the off-ramp. But it's probably a bit more exciting if I can demo this in, I don't know if this video is going to work. How do I press play? Just next. So these are just basically, you'll just see a demo of the calls being made through the platform. This is just on the sandbox environment. So this is just adding the asset to the platform and then generating a deposit or like a buy order for the USDC asset. And basically what you'll see at the end of the video is that it's, at the end it initializes the iframe for Banksa. So that's where the customer then enters that checkout flow. So that widget, from a merchant's perspective, can basically get just embedded within your platform as an iframe, or you can redirect it if you want. and then the customer is in our checkout where they complete the flow. So that's going into the widget. And then basically we've got the quote screen up front where you see what you're buying, what currency you're buying with, what payment method you're using. You can actually skip that page if all the information has already been provided, because you can get all the information via API. We do verify the customer, SMS OTP or email OTP. We get their information. This is where we tick all the boxes for compliance. We do identity verification and KYC. The customer then actually goes through the payment. So you can do the payment instantly if it's like a credit card, or if it's a bank transfer, we will give payment instructions for doing that payment. And then after that, you go to the order status page, and that's basically the end of it. And then if you can take yourselves back to what Jake was saying before, so during this whole flow, basically, we haven't really communicated with the Anchor platform, so everything's been happening on our side. But once the order is completed, that status then goes back on the Anchor platform, and then and then all that information is available to the customer for them to be able to follow up their order. And then if the payment is coming in later with a bank transfer, the status updates gets updated by webhook. Similarly, once we actually deposit the crypto to the customer's wallet, more webhook updates. So this can all be shown in some sort of UI on the partner screen. So that's it. Now, in terms of onboarding with Banksa through the Stellar Anchor platform, basically you do need to sign an agreement with Banksa. Given that we're the merchant of record, there needs to be an agreement with Banksa as well. So there's a due diligence part involved in that. Then it's essentially integrating the Stellar Anchor hosted deposits and withdrawal platform, as explained by Jake earlier today, basically. And then it's you essentially just flick a switch to turn on Banksa. We create you as a merchant on our side, give you the API keys, and then that just gets turned on. Then we can just do a co-marketing campaign, and that's it. We go live. It's as easy as that. And who have we already been working with? So you might have seen around the joints at the conference last few days, Lobster and Beans. So we're already working with them. So they're using Banksa through the Stellar Anchor platform for off-ramping USDC and Stellar, and on and off-ramping. So we're very excited to work with them. And so these integrations, both of them are very nearly completed. So I think we expect to go live in the next couple of weeks. So that's very exciting. And we're obviously open for any other partners that's working on the Stellar platform, to come and talk. And we're happy to integrate more partners through our platform, and happy to continue working with Stellar.
Okay, so we have about 4 minutes. Does anybody have any questions about the platform or questions about Banksa and Flutterwave services? We're happy to answer them.
Hi, Jake.
Hello.
So, if my understanding is correct, a lot of the interactions on the Anchor platform, excuse me, are non-interactive, i.e., it's all API calls and so on and so forth. How does one do something like 24 or Sec 24, sorry, on the Anchor platform?
Yeah, okay, good question. So the question was, it looks like the interaction, with the Anchor platform is primarily through API. And that's true. And so the question was, how does Sec 24 work, which is our hosted deposits and withdrawals standard, where, the Anchor actually provides a user experience that's opened up in a wallet. The answer to that is the URL for the Anchor's web experience is configured within the Anchor platform's configuration file, and then when the client initiates a transaction, and the Anchor platform handles that request, it returns the web view. So for Step 24, there is still the user actually working and interfacing directly with the business through that web view. It's just more outside the scope of the Anchor platform's architecture because the web view is managed and handled completely by the business. So that's kind of in that approval and rejection phase when the Anchor platform or the business is collecting all that information. And then based on the information it collects, it can either approve or reject the transaction and proceed. Okay, thanks for coming.
Oh, wait. I got a question for you. I was curious. So yesterday, Alex gave a great talk about the wallet SDK, and there was a really interesting stat in there. I think it went down, the lines of code went down from 360 to 10? 280 to 10, okay. Does the Anchor platform have any kind of similar stats to give us a feel of, like, you know, how much time it saves?
I should have coordinated with you to like do something like that, yeah. I think we definitely could compile it, and it definitely would be a lot smaller because, again, the Anchor platform's entire purpose is to simplify the like development complexity and, you know, time to delivery for businesses like Flutterwave and Banksa. So it is certainly a lot less code, and we'll probably be putting out like we actually already have reference implementations, and they're fairly small. It really just involves, from a business perspective, you know, a web server that implements those APIs, and most of those APIs are fairly simple, right? Just providing exchange rates. Or making requests to the platform, notifying the platform when, like, you receive, you know, a deposit off chain, right, and you're ready to proceed with the transaction. So there's not really a whole lot there to it. Whereas if you weren't using the platform, you'd have to implement step 10. You'd have to implement, you know, step 1. You know, all this complexity around Stellar, and you know, it definitely improves the experience for the end user. But you know, for a business that's just trying to, you know, offer their services, it's a whole lot of trouble to go through for something that isn't their core competency.
Yeah, absolutely. We do actually have 5 minutes, so if anyone else has any questions for Jake on Anchor Platform, Jimmy, Flutterwave, Heinrich, Banxa, about their integration on Anchor Platform or anything else, we do have some time. Don't be shy, no silly questions, save space. Okay to ask second questions, go for gold.
It's me again, sorry. Where are the hooks for things like KYC in the Anchor Platform? Are they out of the scope of the platform itself? Because the SEP, the KYC is a SEP itself. It's a
Right.
12. Is there a separate thing that does it listen for another thing and then update itself, or how does that work?
So that's a good question. Just to repeat it, it's, you know, he's asking how does the Anchor platform handle KYC, right? Does it even handle KYC, or does it refer out to a different set of endpoints? And the answer to that is the Anchor platform effectively acts as a proxy between the client and the business. And so it'll receive those standardized KYC API requests through step 12, but it won't store any of that information. It really does just act as a proxy, doing some data transformation just to improve the schema a bit, simplify it, and pass it over to the business. Yeah, that's kind of just another example of a case where the Anchor platform is not really the Anchor platform's business, right? So it just proxies that request to the business and back to the client. But it does implement those APIs. This is one of those integrations that the business has to do, like that get put customer endpoint. Yeah.